Welcome to Microphone Check with JB and Q, where no topic is off limits. What's going on with your Q?
What's going on, brother? I'm doing well. Can I complain about it at all?
I know that's
Looking
right.
forward to this much needed conversation.
I know that's right. Same here, man. Same here. So let's get into it. So, what's on our mind? Today, we're going to talk about, does my vote really matter? Does my vote really matter? So, as for me, um, I'll be honest with you. At first, I didn't think my vote really mattered. I was part of the group of people that would say, uh, my vote don't count. It doesn't. My vote won't change anything. I was part of a group of people that was like, yeah, I get it. Being a black person, my ancestors, fought for my right to vote. But hey, look, I am who I am. So I never really did vote early on. But there was this one person I knew in the military. Her name was Sarah Wilson. And she used to talk to me about voting all the time. And I would say, no, I'm good. I don't want to really do it. But she never gave up, man. She used to talk to me about it. Then one time, this is back in the second Bush era, I think it was his second term, when I did my first vote, she discussed some things with me and shared to me with the importance of it. She kind of did she was like my personal Stacey Abrams to get me out to vote. She really said some stuff that really stuck with me, and about the importance of it and how that benefits me, my future family, because I wasn't married at the time, my community and everything else. So at that point, I did my first vote. It was a presidential election, and mind you, I said all that, but I still wasn't engaged in like local law and local, voting, state voting, or anything like that. I kind of pocketed into the federal, the presidential voting pretty much until recently. I would say probably the past 8 years, within the past 8 years, I started doing more going out when there's a local election for my state, county, city, whatever it may be. I started doing it, but even starting off, I just focused on the presidential one for a while. So I'll say, in short, does my vote really matter? Not before, but I believe it does now. How about you, man?
Yeah, much like yourself, I started out with the same notion that at a younger age, I didn't think that my voice really counted. I think I was probably in my early 20s, probably about 21, 22 years old before I actually cast my first vote. I mean, I can't say that I didn't understand the power of my vote. I can't say that I didn't understand how the government system worked. I think that I was more of a product of my community. The community that I came from, you didn't have many people that necessarily voted. And yeah, we can say that most of the time it was because of the notion that we really didn't believe that our vote mattered. But sometimes it's just because we felt as if our votes were being restricted, which is an important topic that in of itself. So early on, I knew that my vote mattered. I just didn't really exercise the right to vote. I want to say that it was like yourself, probably around the second Bush era, where I decided that, hey, it's time for me to start casting my ballot because there were some things going on politically that in my own personal opinion, I had I was directly impacted by it, for one, being a military service member, but two, I wasn't exercising what I believe the direction that the country should go in, or I wasn't vocalizing through my ballot, that is, how I believe the war effort should go. So because of that, that is why I decided that, hey, it's time for me to start voting, and not just voting on the national level, but voting at the state and local level as well. When we talked about the subject here, I want to say it's probably about 3 weeks ago, you used a great analogy. about voting, and I hate to steal this from you, but I'm
Take
pretty sure that
it,
you,
man. Take
I'm,
it.
I'm pretty sure you're going to use it again anyway. Um, but you made a great statement, and I really let that statement resonate with me, and I began to just think about the impact of what that was that you said. It was so small, but yet it was so impactful when you said that, hey, your vote was like a drop of water in the ocean. And the reason I said that, that began to resonate with me, because the power of many votes.
Hmm.
You may be just one drop of water in the ocean, but imagine if many drops of water begin to impact the ocean, the ripple effect that it has. And ripple effect turns into waves. So I just want that to set in with people that, hey, your vote matters, especially in terms of a collective voice. Collective voice changes the tide of any type of political situation.
So, in saying that, what I mean, obviously everybody that votes, your candidate's not going to win, and I think that's where people feel.
Correct.
Let me use I statements, right? I'll use I statements.
Hmm.
I guess that's where I feel it doesn't matter, because if my candidates are consistently not winning, then I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. How do I overcome that?
Well, I don't know if you can ever overcome your candidate not winning. I think we all want to be a winner in some kind of way, shape, fashion, or form. But I think it's all about just dealing with the fact that we are a republic democracy, meaning that we vote for the person of our choice. Granted, that person may or may not win, but being the republic democracy that we are, we agree to peacefully take on the leader who did win, right? Because it's about the peaceful transfer of power. I know we didn't really see that here in January, but
Right.
this is the structure that our country is built off of. So, granted, your candidate may not win. It doesn't mean that you're still down and you're still out. That's why we have three different branches of government. That's why you have your local and your state government systems. Your presidential candidate may not win, but what about your mayoral candidate? What about your gubernatorial candidate? What about your school board candidate? So this is why you don't put all of your eggs in one basket either, because just that one singular candidate that you vote for may not have won. But what about the other candidates that you should have voted for?
That's true. And, I look at I said earlier about Stacey Abrams. I think that was her message. I think our topic that we're talking now about, do your vote, really matter. I think that's what she had to push to all the people that she campaigned to reach concerning going out to vote.
Hmm.
And you remember you about around my age. You remember the Rock the Vote campaign
I
as
do.
well.
Absolutely. Rock the vote.
Rock the vote. And so we're trying, the effort to try to get people to see that voting really mattered. And you saw the turnout that happened. But now you look at, okay, now I'm energized. Now I want to vote. Now I want to make sure I do my part as a citizen of this country. And then you get, oh, let me slap this law that puts a barrier from you to the voting booth. Let me slap in this law within our state that makes it difficult for you to reach the poll. Now I'm like, okay, is it, why do I want to keep on pushing? Why do I want to keep on doing it if I'm getting resistance from the people that are in the position of power, if you will? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That was a great question, and it makes me think of something again we talked about here a few weeks ago, and that is, if your vote did not matter, then why are there so many laws right now to restrict your vote? That's a powerful statement in itself. Why are there so many laws that are being legislated right now to restrict your vote? Let's look at what Governor Brian Kemp is doing in the state of Georgia with voter suppression laws that actually he's already signed it into law at this point, that limit the number of days that you can have early voting. It completely eradicates mail-in ballots unless you are elderly or have some type of debilitating reasons. And I mean, it is even as egregious as at least the initial law. Well, I can't even say the initial law because it's still in the law, but now they're saying that, hey, well, we won't actually enact this part of the law, which is handing out food and water in line. Granted, they said that they won't enact that part of the law, but it's still literally written in the law that you can't do those things.
Oh, is
Which
this not gonna be
in
enforced?
my yeah, yeah, at this point, it's not going to be enforced, but it's still written in the law.
So they can turn it on whenever they want.
Just like with the yeah, they turn on whenever they want to. Just even like with having your vote, you have to go and have it. What's the word I'm looking for? Oh my goodness, I'm having a brain fart right now. um, but you have to have someone to validate your vote, and it it's $10 for it. Now they said they have since taken that part out of the bill as well. I'm sorry, not taking it out, but they're not going to enforce that part of the bill. But it's literally still in there. So how are you going to tell me that you're not going to enforce something, but it's still a part of the bill, which means that it's still a part of the law because Brian Kemp has signed it into the law. So once they actually revise it and actually take that out, it's still legal for them to arrest someone to hand out water, to hand out food.
When no
But
prior
this is
notice,
what's going on.
start enforcing it.
Yes, and that's another great point. So you're not enforcing it now, but when will you start enforcing it, and how are you going to notify people that we're going to start enforcing this provision of the law?
Yo, that's crazy.
And notarizing is what I was thinking about, that the $10 notary fee.
Man.
But yeah, it's crazy.
But you know, speaking
But
of that,
I think
I'm looking
that
at the water, and I'm like, well, I don't, you know, I don't always see how that correlates as in voting suppression to say, okay, you can't pass out water. You don't necessarily, you know, I don't see it happen often. I don't see it. I've never seen it happen, so I don't see how that's considered voter suppression now.
Well, let me walk you down the road as to why that's voter suppression. You have to think about what has happened in totality with closing voting polls in predominantly Black and Brown communities, and not only closing out polling places. Rather, I said polling polls, but closing out polling places in urban communities. But they have also limited the number of actual polls inside of the polling places that they did leave in place. So what this has done is begin to stretch the lines. So you have people literally waiting in lines. I think the last report that I read in Georgia, people were standing in line anywhere from 3 to 5 hours to cast a vote, cast a ballot. 3 to 5 hours to cast a ballot. Yeah. But this is what they did. They did this because, and they only did it in Black and Brown communities. Only in Black and Brown communities where they know that there was a heavy population of Democratic voters, and they wanted to elongate those lines so that they can discourage people from coming out to vote.
Very,
yes, sir.
Very interesting.
So that's how the water plays into, you know, discrimination. That's how it plays into voter intimidation.
So, I guess in a sense, then, when it comes to what your vote mattering, for me, you know, like I said before, I didn't believe it mattered. I believe it matters now. At all levels, I do believe it matters now. And so I do vote. And I guess when you say something matters, you have to say that there's an impact to that one vote. And I think you've made it very clear. I think you did it well when I said about your candidate not winning, we you know, kind of vote to win.
Mhm.
Like I don't play a slot machine to and be happy when I don't win. You know, I play it because I want
Correct.
to win. Uh,
Yes. I
so
don't want to lose my money.
I don't want to lose my money. So I feel like, you know, with that whole vote, does your vote matter? Like, am I losing my vote? Um, is this just the game of saying, okay, I did it, regardless of who wins or not? I just checked the box
Yeah.
to say it. And I feel that we do need to go beyond just saying I checked a box. Like, even if your
Absolutely.
candidate didn't win, it's not and you cast your vote for a candidate, the candidate didn't win. It's really not about winning in the moment, but there's still a fight that you have to go through.
Hmm.
You still have other votes that may come up. You still have, like, even though if this law is passed now, it may come up again in Georgia to where they can readdress those provisions of the law, and they may have to vote again. Like, don't stop, and don't think your vote and it only matters for the moment, but you matter, and your vote matters past the moment, past the casting of a ballot, past the
Hmm.
casting of your vote. It matters because things can change even if it didn't go your way now. And so that's I had
Yeah,
to get that kind
absolutely.
of mentality. Is like I I can't just not vote because of a candidate. The candidate of my choice didn't win. Um, but because my life continues on, even after the election. My life continues
Absolutely.
after the election. My life changes. I too was were part of the military before, and my vote went towards things that benefited the military. Then
Hmm.
I got out the military, and my life changed. Had my health care was bad, so I had to. My votes were around how's this benefiting healthcare wise, or the
Hmm.
employment I work for. How does that benefit that? When I got children, I started to look about education. What's their stance in education? And so your vote matters because there's multiple aspects of us. We're many parts. We're many people.
Yes.
As you know, I'm a pastor, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a husband, I'm a son, I'm a brother. There's many parts of me in the same body. That's just like my vote. My vote has different aspects. College, I got to think about military,
Absolutely.
um, general education, uh, uh, community programs, racism.
Yeah.
So
And that's a good segue into something that I think is very important too, and that's even just registering to vote. So you named all of those great things, how your vote is impactful, but you can't even begin to get to those things until you register to vote. And then when we talk about in terms of racism, and we talk about police reform, and we talk about like even in past trials when you had cops that most of us agree probably should have been convicted because of excessive use of power. And you see these members of the juries, and you're like, why didn't they do it? And I don't think a lot of people understand that you can't even be served as a member of the jury unless you are registered to vote.
mm,
So it's a lot of us, and by a lot of us, I mean there's a lot of people of color who chooses not to register to vote, and then you have complaints about the way that a trial turned out. Well, you're not doing your civic duties. You're neglecting your civic duties because you neglected to register. So therefore, you can't even serve on a jury so that you can impact the outcome of that trial.
that's a good point. Now, disclaimer, everybody, that does not mean don't register so you can skip jury duty.
That means that we need more of us on jury duties.
Like, oh, that's all? Okay, okay.
Yeah, let me not register. I ain't ever got to worry about doing jury duty now.
But I mean that's a good point. Because I don't, like I said, I statements. I didn't see that tie in registering to vote with jury duty and the impact that my vote and jury duty could, if for a trial can have for a person that is being convicted or company that's being charged, whatever that role for jury duty may be. I'd never really connected that, and I think that's something that needs to be said too. In general, I mean, with when I certainly find a great appreciation for it, but now that I've arrived, I have to also help my kids to realize that voting matters for them, even though they're not eligible to vote.
Yes.
So they're definitely not at that age to even thinking about voting themselves, but they're not. They are of the age to understanding what the process is and how important it is. Excluding the COVID situation, before then I was taking the kids to the station, to the voting to the voting location, letting them see me vote. They passed them, gave them a sticker that says I have voted.
I have voted.
I let them see me watch for the presidential election. I let them see me watch the numbers go up and things shift and saying, this candidate, this state was going blue, this state was going red, or this county was blue or red. And we saw that, we talk about it. And so now, at least the excitement, as temporary it is before they're ready to get into whatever they want to do, play around or something like that. They spend some moments with me and my wife as we watch, as we engage into what voting looks like, what the process looks like. And so I now have that responsibility to get them motivated about it, even to the point to where I ask them who would they vote for. They don't really do the research of the candidates, obviously, like we do, but as I say, who you do, and they have their own opinion. Some of it is based off of what I said, mom said. Some is based off of communications with their friends. Some are based off of what they see in the news channels I watch, because I try to watch various ones. Some of it is just their way, I don't know what they're doing with the kids nowadays, but back when I was growing up, they had, voting within school, your school president and stuff like that. And you were able to campaign if you were running for a role. So this is just my way to try to motivate my kids. I think that's very important. So if I motivate them now, they'll be ready by the time they're eligible to vote.
Something that my kids' school, at least the elementary school that they all attended, it was actually on a military installation. But one of the things that that they were doing is, in that time, there was a presidential election year. The school actually allowed the kids to cast fake ballots. So they're going to the cafeteria, they have a polling station set up, and they can go in, they can cast a ballot for whatever candidate that they wanted to. And at the end of the school day, they'll tally up the votes and they'll decide from the school who won the overall election for that school. So that's something that my kids' school did during the elementary years. But to the extent possible, the wife and I, we try to have as many conversations as we can with all of them. Obviously, my youngest son, he's not quite into it yet. Granted, I still try to have those intentional conversations with him about it. But the oldest two, man, they are really into it. In fact, I can tell you this: in the 2016, when Hillary lost to Trump, my daughter actually cried because she did not want to see him become president.
I understand.
No, I wanted to cry too.
But
yes, sir.
That's good stuff, man. And we interact with various people before talking about voting and candidates was like taboo. For the past 4 years, it became more open. People with open discussion, which I believe is a benefit. And hopefully schools are still engaging and talk about what the government looks like, the different branches, what the importance of voting, so that people do know that their vote matters. And it's a personal place that someone has to get to understand that it matters, but we can help as individuals who vote, we can help them see it. I never imagined the push that Stacey Abrams did. Whether people agree with her stance or political stance or anything like that, uh, one can't dispute that she was very impactful of getting people out. And I think it was you who said that she didn't narrow it down to just a political party. She did this as a general campaign. I think you told me
Yeah,
that.
she did. Yeah, she did grassroots. And I can't even say politics because it wasn't a political agenda. Because granted, she wanted to affect the Democratic Party, but she knew that in her endeavor to do so, she had to be willing to go into those extremely rural areas and talk to these extremely right-sided um, people and say, "Hey, look, you have to vote your entrance." And one of her talking points was, "You're in a rural area. The governor of this state has closed most of the county hospitals, and you have to drive sometimes 45 minutes to an hour to get to emergency service.
Mm.
But yet you still want to vote for a party that continued to restrict your entrance." And so she was like, "You're voting against your interests when you continue to vote for this person." So she began to talk about Democratic talking points about, "Hey, look, this is what Democratic governors want to do. We want to open up more hospitals, give you access to health care."
Yeah.
And she began to just, talk about those things, and that resonated with a lot of people. That's why you're seeing the tide of Georgia turn from red to purple to eventually blue.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you, I guess how to put it, hypothetical, I don't think it will ever happen. Um, but do you think, would, do you think that voting is so important that it should be, that it should be a requirement to vote?
No, because we are a free country, I would never make something a requirement to do X, Y, or Z.
I
It
mean, it's
shouldn't have
probably
to be
get
a
healthcare.
requirement. Well, don't
License.
even get me started on that one. Well, no, license is a different thing because now you're driving a motorized vehicle on a government highway. So yeah, I think you do need a license for that. Just like I think all gun owners should be licensed, but that's a story for that's a conversation for another time.
You got to put that
But
in
I
our
don't think
budget.
that. Yeah, that'd be the next topic. That'd be the next topic. But I don't think that that you should be required to vote. But what I do believe though is when you turn 18, you should have automatic voter registrations so that everything that you need to do is already in place for you to affect that vote.
I like that because as a male child, you have to do the selective service when you turn a certain age, right?
Oh, don't get me started with that. But come on now. Yes.
So, yeah, why can't it be the same case for being registered? The requirement is to register to vote, or if it was automatic to where there's no there's no disruption in your life. You fill out a form or whatever, send it back to whatever, make it easier, to register to vote. They have all your information anyway. But I think registration
Florida already, believe it or not, Florida already does it.
They do.
Yeah, believe it or not, Florida they kind of already do it. So when I took my son to get his license last year, or 2 years ago, actually, it's been that long. But when I took him to get his license 2 years ago, they asked if he wanted to be enrolled to automatically register to vote once he turned 18. And you just check the box yes or no. And if you check yes, then they send you a letter in mail like 2 weeks later and say, "Hey, you've been automatically entered into auto registration, voter registration. And when you turn 18, you'll receive your voter ID card."
That makes
So Florida, in a sense, already does it. Yeah, simple and easy. I'm get my license. I can check the box and say yes. I want to be registered to vote when I'm 18. And 2 years later or 3 years later, however old you are when you get your license, you get your registration card.
That's pretty interesting. You know, before we sign off, this is related to voting, but not necessarily does voting really matters. But last question for you, subject matter expert. um, uh, Based on the way the elections went this past cycle, do you how do you feel about better verification of identity for those who are voting, a better verification system to ensure that you are the person casting a ballot or mailing a ballot or whatever it may be, because there was accusations of fraud during this past presidential election. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, as a law-abiding citizen, I'm going to always side on the side of law. That I think that only citizens who are registered and legally able to affect their vote should be voting. But that being said, out of all of the allegations of voter fraud and illegal voters, it was less than 0.4%. 0.4, less than 0.4% of actual voter fraud. Less than 0.4%. So I don't.
Other, do you know if that's consistent with other elections?
I'm not sure if that's consistent with other elections.
It's still low.
I haven't looked at the data on other elections, but I know that from this past one, it was less than 0.4%.
Yeah, still low.
So that's a very insignificant amount. So, so I'm still trying to figure out where's this voter fraud coming from, because it hasn't been substantiated. That's just my take on it. I mean, but yeah, obviously, I do believe that, yeah, we should require voters to have some form of legal ID to vote, whether that means that you have a state issue ID, a school ID, which is given by the state, by the way. If you have your voter registration card, I think all those things are good enough to go out there and vote. Now, obviously, you may have some issues when you have people who are illegal aliens, if you will, that acquire IDs and try to vote. But that's where the system, you have to trust the system to work for itself. Because like I said, even we have a country that is built off immigrants, and obviously we have a lot of illegal immigrants here as well. But based off the numbers, it wasn't a large turnout base for those voters or illegal voters.
That's good stuff, man. Like I said, you dropped some knowledge this time. When it comes to voting, you opened my eyes in a lot of stuff. I thank you, man, just for opening up, sharing with that with the audience and everything else, man. Keep on doing what you're doing. You are instrumental in helping me to get a better understanding of voting, as we talked about many weeks ago. But so I appreciate that, man.
You're welcome, bro.
Closing out, though, we do challenge you, everybody out there, to research either a local, state, or federal law that is being proposed or voted on. Check out the impacts it will have on you, your family, your community, someone you care about, whatever it may be. Check out those impacts. This is our challenge for this week. I guarantee you it will open up your eyes. You might find some law that's out there that you didn't even know was going on, and it may not be something that you agree with, or maybe something that you want to get behind. But check it out. You might find some stuff out there. Thanks for listening to What's on Our Mind. Come join us next week as we discuss what is true leadership? This is Microphone Check with JB and Q. Until next time, peace, patience, power, and prosperity. Peace out.